As I deepen into my freedom journey, I really want to share with you all what I'm doing to grow. And so a lot of this has been about trying to balance what I've learned from my church upbringing to the practices of our ancestors and practices from other cultural traditions. One thing that I have really grown fond of are sound bowls. And these are aligned with different chakras. I want to shout out my good sister Erica Badu. She may not even remember this, but there was a Leading Women Defined session that she taught a few years back where I was busily writing down everything about chakras that I could because I had no idea what this system was. But there's also a tradition that's similar in African cultures, which are aligned with chakras as well, and those are different energy points and centers. And so there are times where we feel depleted, and if I feel depleted in a certain region of my body, or my nervous system is hyperactive, I'll come in here and do this practice. This is my meditation room at home. Come in here and pray, read my devotionals with my best friend Leonetta, who was just here, and we got to spend some time reading and reflecting and praying together. It's also a time where, or a space where, if there's conflict going on, I'll come in here and talk with a loved one about how to resolve conflict. So this is my space, and it gives me great joy, brings me great peace, and the sound bowl practice is one that I've adopted. Learning to unplug from the news, from media, from work, from all of the things that sometimes zap our energy is so critically important to me. I've learned that I am a completely different person when I don't unplug. And I prefer the balance of being able to tap into what matters, what's going on. I'm not saying we should be completely oblivious to what is happening in this very busy, hectic, and sometimes crazy world around us. But it's also important for us to center our self-care practices that matter to us, practices that help us understand our freedom holistically a lot better. And one of the things that I do is take my prayer time, take my reading and devotional time, take time to just be still. And that's been really, really hard for me. One of my friends, Debbie Brown, for example, has talked to me a lot about salt baths. So has Queen Afua. And that's now a practice that I've adopted. Try to do 3 salt baths at least a week. And it makes a huge difference. Again, a tool that our ancestors used as well. One of my favorite examples of when I really started tapping into my mental health journey was after a breakup. I was going through the process of freezing my eggs, and my friend Sante said to me, "You can't have no stressed out eggs." And she was absolutely right. And I was like, I can't have stressed out eggs. So I went into, what do I need to do? And I was like, I'm gonna listen to spa music every night. I still do it. I was like, I need to make sure that I have a prayer time. Still do that. Wanted to make sure that I read things that fed me. And sometimes I share those things online. In my Instagram story, on Twitter, we share quote graphics on my social media pages that inspire me. Those moments keep us mindful. Those moments help us to affirm ourselves and who we are. I think my freedom journey, mental health journey, self-care journey has really been rooted and grounded in ensuring there's a consistent flow. I have a holistic therapist named Yadi who, again, when I was on the egg freezing journey, talked to me about a weekly flow. And so there are things that I've put in place that are constant. Devotional time with my best friend. Lighting candles throughout the house. They smell good. My incense, my Palo Santo, my sage to just clear energy in the space and to walk and pray. Those are some of the things that I do. I also talked about salt baths. Super, super important to me. Grounding into that. Finding quiet time, finding something that's comfortable to wear at home, getting cozy. I love to be warm, make everybody else sweat, but I love to be warm. And then I also think it's important what you consume. So we talked about the overconsumption of media that doesn't feel good to you. You'll know in your body if something isn't sitting right with you. And so those are the things that I will tune out and turn off. There's some music sometimes where I'm like, there's too much going on right now. It's making me feel really anxious. I'll tune that out. I think also Recently, I realized that I have had panic attacks my entire life. And I had one that was really bad. Naja, who works with me, was here, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And what it reminded me in that moment is, as much as I've embraced wellness practices, there are times where life still gets very hectic, and I started to shift out of the things that are self-caring and self-loving and move more into work. And it was a moment that kind of just shook me back into, you have to prioritize self-care and loving on yourself to make sure that you're whole. I read this in my devotional time this morning. I read this affirmation. I think you're going to love it. The affirmation says, breathe in, I was born worthy.
I was born worthy. Everyone join. As you say it, we're going to say it.
Okay.
Everyone, I was born worthy.
You breathe in, I was born worthy.
I was born worthy.
And you exhale, I will not prove it.
I will not
prove it.
Oh. Wow. Because I was born worthy. Because I was born worthy, I don't have to prove that I was born worthy.
That's right. That's right. And that is where our real freedom lies. When we get to the point where we don't have to nurse our ego and feed that with proving all of your qualifications and talking about all your experience and showing people where you went to school and telling people who you know and talking about how many followers you have and talking about how pretty you are, or how many dudes you got, or how many chicks you got, or whatever it is, whatever that thing is that soothes your wounded ego, you don't have to have it, because all of that stuff is not who you really are. And once you get to the heart of who you really are, you know that you are enough, that you were born worthy, and you don't have to prove it. So the last thing I'd say, especially given the numbers that we've seen around depression and suicide these days, is it's so important to make sure that you have a regular practice with therapy. A licensed psychologist, someone who you can talk to, whether you're feeling overwhelmed or super nervous or sad. Even if everything is good, it's a great time to have. It's a great time, given we're on the third year almost of this pandemic, to ensure that you have someone who you're speaking to who can give you tools to survive in really challenging times, whether it's collective or individual, making sure that you take care of your physical body, your mental and your emotional body, and your spiritual body. To me, those things cannot be divided in a self-care practice. They work for me. I hope they work for you all, but these are just some of the things that I do to try to stay well. Be blessed.